our community, our parents are rightfully so concerned about being an artist. They're like, okay, I'm going to have this 50-year-old kid in my basement life just, drawing Winky. And it's important that I've had these conversations with parents.
Right.
Like, can my kid actually make a living off this? And I said, yes, they can. Maybe in this particular avenue, that maybe the child is not interested in comics per se, but they are an artist. And as you were saying about drawing cars or creating cars, well, you can design cars, you can design buildings, you can do a whole bunch of stuff that's not necessarily comics. But yes, they can make a living from comics, and we give them the breakdown of what they can do. But for me, the key has always been the parents, getting them on board.
Gotcha.
And being okay with their kid being a creative person.
Gotcha.
And I would like to cap that off. I wanted to say something real quick.
You got to raise your hand, Roye.
About encouragement, I think that's a very great point. And I want to talk from personal experience here. So like I said, I was born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria, and growing up, like many of you, I fell in love with characters like Superman, Batman, Spider-Man. I just loved superheroes. But not only did I not see any characters that were, black or African or whatever the case may be, it was hard trying to imagine myself doing that in the future, because I loved the product and I wanted to be part of, creating something like that. But in my mind, I was programmed to feel like, well, this isn't something that I can do. So, which is why I'm very grateful for, everyone that's in the room right now, because I think it's very important for people to see people like us, actually doing stuff that's successful in this industry. And whether that's animation, whether that's in merchandising or in comic books, I think it's very important to expose this to children around the world that, like, hey, yeah, you can do it too. If they can see that they're not only, diverse characters, but also diverse creators behind these diverse characters, I think it sends a very powerful message.
Awesome. And Joseph, you wanted to say something too?
Well, to kind of connect to this thematically, what really got me into comic books was an internship at a comic book company. And I didn't know exactly how it was going to work, what it was going to be like, but actually working at a comic book company, I was able to learn all the different aspects, from the creative to the business. And then I actually went in on the business side first because I wanted to learn how a comic book company worked. And then after that, I went over to editorial and went into the content. But what's really important, I think, is for young people to seek out opportunities. And, everyone hates the word free. Like, working for free, no one wants to do that. When I went to intern at Milestone, my mother, who's from Jamaica, did not want to hear any part of that. But she kind of had some faith in me, and she said, okay, if he's going to do it, he's going to do it for a reason. So if there's a company that you want to work at, I would say see if there's an internship there, and go and work and get some experience. Even if you don't work there, you'll learn how things work, and you can take that experience and you can find another destination.
And this was a college internship?
No, it was right after college I got out.
And what did you study art, or were you on the...
I did. I went to the High School of Art and Design and School of Visual Arts in Manhattan. I've been drawing ever since I was a kid. Funny enough, I ended up becoming a writer and an editor, but knowing art allows me to speak to artists in their language, because unfortunately most editors are artistically illiterate.
Yes, I can attest to that.
So it helps me speak to artists in their language.
Gotcha. Well, I want to ask another question. Actually, this is from the audience. They want to know, someone wanted to ask, and I lost the name, but they want to know if any of you were influenced by anime.
Oh, yeah. That's a visual medium. In fact, I guess, animation, Matty's Rocket wasn't animation initially. And the 20 minutes of animation I produced almost killed me, but I got it done. I know 3D animation, all those type of things, and when I found out doing all those things that are used in anime and traditional 3D animation and traditional 2D animation, I've actually been able to apply those to Matty's Rocket.
Gotcha. Anybody else? Anime a big influencer?
I was watching Gotcha Man on Battle Planets, Star Blazers back in the day. They were a big influence on my development as an artist. And then from there, I always wanted to tell a story. I mean, I began to want to tell a story with my art, but I couldn't. I said not anime because it's too much work. Like 10 seasons almost killed them.
Yeah.
So going into high school, I wanted to do something to tell a story with my art. Where I figured comic books is the next best thing. But I've always had animation in my. I still watch it. I still watch things with my daughter. I always watch Naruto with my daughter.
Didn't you work on Voltron?
Exactly, you got to draw like one of the Japanese animation giants. You got to draw the lions.
Yeah, I did. I drew Voltron for a couple years ago too.
I have the
Awesome.
book, brother.
Awesome.
For me, coming up, as a young lad in the '80s, Saturday morning cartoons. That was a big influence on what I wanted to do. Didn't know that maybe 30 years later that this would manifest into a comic book line as well as an animated series that will be forthcoming later on. But that influence there, and then as Roye talked about and everybody else pretty much talked about earlier, just being able to have a visual of characters that represented who I was and where I come from. That was another influence that that I wanted to be able to change that paradigm.
Gotcha.
But the actual Saturday morning cartoons captured my interest.
Yeah.
And
People are thrown out there for I get Dragon Ball Z, Goku, He-Man.
in college, we used to have Dragon Ball Z. What do we call it?
It was crazy.
I just know we used to just meet up and watch Dragon Ball Z in the residence lounge with no problem. Religiously, like it was church.
When I was in high school, before I was going to...
Raising my hand.
We missed you. We missed you, Roye. Roye, I'm gonna let Micheline speak, and then I'll come back to you.
The person I was still boyfriend at the time introduced me to Akira, and he had this bootleg videotape. It was not translated. It was just raw as anything, and it was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. And from that point, it was all downhill. So it got so bad. I even got to a point, because it was so hard to get anime at that time.
Right.
I started trying to learn Japanese and taking classes just so I could watch the unedited, untranslated stuff. So it actually worked. I mean, I learned a lot. I ended up having to be able to go to Japan. So it was actually, anime was a huge positive influence for me.
Gotcha. And Roye, you wanted to weigh in on the anime influence?
Yeah. I just wanted to chime in real quick. I grew up a huge Dragon Ball Z fan. Matter of fact, I think it was more of an addiction as opposed to just being a fan.
Isn't that always the case?
Before I moved down here to the U.S., we used to come, my family and I would come here to spend the summer. And I remember my mom would always give us like an allowance for the whole 2 months we were here. And the month that I came here when the new Dragon Ball Z season came out, I literally spent everything on the VHS tapes, only to get back home and then, realize that, a whole season was Goku basically just charging to fight Frieza for 10 episodes.
Gotcha. Great.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of influence that anime and it has in some of my writing, and there's like minor influences that you can even see till now. So it still affects me, and it's still something that I draw a lot of creative inspiration from.
Gotcha. And I got a couple more questions here, and I want to focus on Regine and Micheline for a second. I started collecting comics in like 1982, and women were just not into it. Girls were not into it, and black girls definitely not. The ones I knew weren't into it. You pretty much set yourself up to be ostracized by talking about comic books. So how have things, apparently things have changed quite a bit in the industry. I'm so happy to see so many women and young women embracing comics and superheroes and cosplay. I think it's fantastic. But as comic book creators, as women and as women of color, what are the challenges that still remain? Is there still a lot of pushback because you're female, or do you find that it's good content is good content?
Well, for me, good content is good content in general. Just being out there and selling the books, I've never really had an issue. you know, you get on social media, everyone's an internet gangster. But to my face, everything for the most part has been just very, very pleasant. People are happy to see a woman of color selling books. Often they're surprised at what the content is. They think it's going to be like really cutesy and Care Bear, and they open the books like, oh no, it's definitely not. There's a lot of bloodshed here. So, no, being out there again has been a very, very positive experience. But as I said, there is still a dark side of sort of like, well, you know, what are you doing here behind computer screens, as it were. But I don't let that stop me. I continue my process as I sort of laugh it off to a certain extent. But it doesn't stop me from producing. I've always collected comic books. I've collected comics since I was about 8 years old. My family has been very encouraging. My mother was the only one that said, "Are you sure you want to collect these comic book cards? What is this?" But no, everyone for the most part has been very, very supportive. But yes, challenges are there. They will be there. They may diminish, but they will be there. And all we can do is continue to push forward and encourage each other.
And Micheline, you're...
I would say the biggest challenge or the most frustrating situation that I've had to deal with is just people who tend to underestimate my creative potential. But in the same vein, I think you have to kind of do like Regine was saying and laugh it off. And I think the key to kind of overcoming those types of obstacles is in being very consistent, doggedly so. You know, like getting up and drawing like before I go to work and drawing on the train before I go to work, or drawing on the weekends and things, and people will be like, "What are you doing in the, come outside, associate with human beings," and he's like, "No, I can't, I have to stay in and finish this." So, it's when you have something finished that you can actually put forward that I think is the time that you feel like, it's all worth it, and no one can really touch anything to you. It's almost like having a suit of armor,
right?
Because you saw it through. So that would definitely be like my message to anyone who feels like they're kind of intimidated by it all, is that don't be intimidated and really just try. Just try it and do it, and don't give up because you get negative feedback from people. There's always going to be people like that waiting in the shadows for you,
Gotcha.
What are you doing? So, yeah, that's what I would say.
Can I just see a show of hands? So who's working in the comic industry full time? So you can. And you are too, Roye. So you can attest. This can
we
be.
Don't see a hand raised.
So this is something that you can do full time if you get the opportunity, and the rest of you are doing it sort of as a side passion.
I'm in this weird kind of in between state because I just with Walker. That's a monthly book. So I'm kind of. Did you call it a breach, baby? That's what I'm about to have. I'm basically about to begin. I've already begun it, so it's a monthly book.
Right.
But I'm still doing Maddie's Rocket, and I've had to reduce the amount of other things I did. So I don't know what I'm at. Where I am. I'm kind of in a transition. Yeah, I'm in a transitional stage.
Gotcha. I would imagine that the labeling or that's not of important as is just getting out your vision and your craft when you want to.
I just like to say I have 2 full-time jobs. That's basically what it is.
And you are a teacher.
Well, I'm an educator. I'm actually vice principal by title.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
Over a pre-engineering academy in Newark, New Jersey.
That's right.
So that's my daytime, and then my nighttime job is developing product for PBS Media.
Do the students know you create a comic book?
Yes, recently.
Do they think you're like the coolest vice president ever? Because you would be to me.
Well, yes, and actually when we do panels and stuff, especially when we do education panels, I get a lot of educators like, "Wow, I wish you worked at my school," because they'd be like, "Oh, you get it,"
Right.
So that was pretty much that's the feedback I generally get with that.
Great. Well, any final thoughts? What I would like to do is ask you for any final thoughts, any wrap-ups, and also to advertise your project that you're working on, where people can get it or view it, buy it.
Final thing I don't think was discussed, like one of the biggest issues is finance.
That's a great point.
Because when you're a small comic book, the price it takes for you to make your comic book is so costly. You be like, what? You want $7 per book or $4? Whereas when you talk about competing with Marvel and DC, they have a large budget where they can print 100,000 comic books that equal out to what, 50 cents, $1, whatever. Whereas
much lower unit cost.
So these are the things. One of the biggest struggles we have. Whereas though you say, I want to do a hard book. Now to make a sample hard book, maybe $200 just to make one. So then you also have the issue of going in like events like the Comic-Con. And they charging $2,000 a booth, and you don't make your money back. You're like, what is this? This is crazy. And show after show and traveling, nobody reimburses on traveling expenses.
Right.
You know, so it's like you're traveling, you're eating, the cost to make the books, the products. So these are some of the things that the small guys, or I want to say small, growing, face. And I think one of the ways we can overcome this, which you heard previously, Fuhr said, is by uniting and coming together and forming that collective. And it happens like simultaneous by us seeing each other in the same venue. So each us finish like, hey, you going to be at this show? Oh, go tell such to sign you up. And so these are the issues that we face finance, but we overcome it by networking. So it's important to network.
Great. And before Roye, I saw your hand. So I'm going to let you get a final thought, and please tell the audience, your book, with your title, where they can get it.
Yes, again, my name is Roye Okupe. I am a writer and creative director at Unique Studios. I currently have 2 books out there, E.X.O, The Legend of Wale Williams, Part 1 and Part 2, and currently working on Malaika, Warrior Queen, that's on a Kickstarter right now. I just wanted to touch on the last point that was made about finances. I go through that all the time, every single day. Like I said, I quit my full-time job to pursue a career in comic books and animation. And it's not the most glamorous thing. I tell people I haven't bought new clothes in 2 years, but at least I can pay my rent, so that's a good thing. But I just look at it as any other business, and it doesn't have to be comic books. You can want to start a shop, you can want to, start a restaurant, whatever the case may be. You need capital to start that. You have to raise capital to do that. And, where you get that money from can range from private equity investors to angel investors, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of research that can be done about that. I personally went the route of Kickstarter. So I've run 3 Kickstarters right now, and that's basically how I finance the printing for my book. So it's a model that has worked for me personally. It may not work for everyone else. Like I said, there's other routes to take. I don't think there's one shoe that fits all in terms of starting a comic book company or a transmedia company. But one thing that's universal is making quality products. It doesn't matter if you have all the money in the world or none of the money in the world. If you don't have a quality product, your business cannot succeed for anything. And when I say quality, I don't mean just in the art. I also mean in the writing, the way it's marketed, the PR behind it, your business development, your business model. Every single thing has to be quality across the board, because that gives you at least a chance to be successful. And one thing that I'll say before I leave is that there's one quote that I heard from someone, I can't remember right now, is that the world is moving so fast right now, you have to run to stand still, which is why I feel like you basically have 5 seconds to impress anyone out there, whether that's social media, at a convention, online, whatever the case may be, which is why the quality has to be, the focus has to be on creating quality products that people can attach themselves to.
Great. Thank you, Roye. And Naseed?
Thank you so much.
And now PBS Soldier, that is a funded Kickstarter product, and that's available now,
right? Yes, we actually have the first 3 episodes available right now. The third episode 3.0, was actually just funded on Kickstarter.
Oops. Sorry, guys.
It was also funded on Kickstarter also. I actually teamed up with Machindo, brother Tim Fielder here, so, just using, the resources and being able to collaborate with other individuals has also worked for us. And moving forward, we look to produce definitely more episodes moving forward. We have the KhemFest that's going to happen in February 25th in Newark, New Jersey. I invite everyone to be a part of that. Definitely. And
that's KHEM.
Yes, KHEM.
And it's free.
And it's free for.
And it's free.
Yes. And it's free for the fans. We are and we actually do it. Being that it falls, and it's actually pretty good. I mean, that we actually here at this venue. Being that it falls right near Dwayne McDuffie's birthday, we actually are going to do a tribute to him. And then every year that we actually do it, we're going to make sure that we have a tribute to Dwayne McDuffie, who was one of the industry influences that I looked at. Especially when we looked at people of color, doing stuff that's in the mainstream, as well as Milestone and all the other, historical pieces.
Great, thank you, Naseed. And Joseph?
Wow, final words. Final words would be that whatever you decide your gift is or the skill set you want to pursue, you have to do it doggedly. If you want to be a writer, you have to write all the time. You have to read all the time. If you're going to be an artist, you have to draw all the time. You have to look at other art all the time. It has to be consistent. After you do that, then learn about the business aspect. If business is not your thing, find somebody who knows about business and get that person to be your ally. And so you can learn from them. I think a lot of people fall into the trap of thinking they have to do it alone. And we all have strengths and weaknesses. And it's okay to say, I don't know this. But it's not okay to say, I don't want to learn.
Gotcha. So
you definitely have to learn. The comic book that I'm doing right now is Solarman, which is available through Scout Comics with N. Stephen Harris. And I'm a senior editor at Lion Forge Comics, which is a black-owned comic book company based in St. Louis. And you'll start seeing our new superhero line in May of 2017.
Awesome. Stephen?
All right, yeah, I think for young people and people who want to start a business, is whatever idea you have, I think you should do it, and don't worry about what other people think or what other people want to create. If you have an idea, just make sure, like Joe and Naseed said, you do it well. You study your craft, whether you're a writer or artist, and put it out there. Don't worry about what you think people want. Just draw or write what you think is important, and make it interesting.
Gotcha.
And I think you may be surprised with what you might do. And the books I have here, one of my books I created is Brother of the Fringe, which I write, draw in color. Ajala, co-created by myself and Robert Garrett. And the award-winning Watching at Home.
Beautiful. Wow, and, awesome.
Award nominated by two Eisners and won 4 awards.
Great. Wow, thank you. And Regine?
My final words are that creativity can take you anywhere, including getting a job and living and thriving. So whatever your dreams are, you can make it happen with hard work and determination. My books that are out have Ice Witch, Eating Vampires.
Oh, cool.
And The Rippers.
Yeah.
And Women in Comics, we have a lot of events coming up. We usually have one every month. Next month, we actually are doing a workshop with the Metropolitan Museum of Art at the World Cultural Festival on November 5th.
Awesome.
And we have other things coming up. You can check me out at www.lockitdown.com. Also, womenincomicscollective.org.
Awesome. Thank you, Regine. Micheline?
My final words would be, if you're kind of daunted by the disturbingly large amount of money that sometimes it takes to get a comic done, go on Tumblr, go on Instagram. These things are all free. You can set up a Facebook fan page. You can have a web comic. So there's actually a lot of ways to get around that if the problem is money. But like it was mentioned earlier, like your comic will definitely need to be quality if you want people to come to you and stay around what you're doing. So I am the writer and artist of Malice and Ovenland. It's published by Rosarian Publishing, and you can get it on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. You can also get it in stores in Barnes & Noble, Forbidden Planet, and Midtown Comics.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Micheline.
Thank you.
Mr. Fielder.
Yeah. Yeah. Final words. I think you know. I guess I should say about social media, since it doesn't look like we really talked a lot about it.
Mm-hmm.
Social media is the engine that allows you to communicate with any and everyone. Do not be afraid of social media. Do not be afraid of tagging them up. Don't be afraid of multiple tweets. Don't be afraid to promote your stuff. Get your Tumblr site, free hosting.
Don't be shy.
Don't go. Don't be afraid to go to Fiverr.com if you run into a programming issue to get someone to assist you with marketing or programming for your site. Do it. If your quality of your comic is bad, do it. If someone else says the quality of your comic is bad, do it. Don't listen. Just do it, because if you look at comics in general, this period we're in right now reminds me of the late 60s,
Wow.
early 70s, where underground comics, Spain Rodriguez, S. Clay Wilson, all those guys had comic artwork that was so far outside of the norm, but they changed the world. So do your work. Don't worry
Gotcha.
about what anyone else says.
Great. And George, I know you're an analyst and you write about the space a lot. Just your thoughts on the state of the black comic book business?
I think what would be important for people to take away is if you might not be into comics, but if you have little kids, you can use comics as that gateway drug for literacy, which is very important. And also just having these people out there, if you go to the conventions, take your kids with you, show them that there are people like this out there. I took my niece to Comic-Con last year. She loved it. I couldn't show her all of Regine's books, but she did like Regine's other stuff.
Eating vampires.
Yeah, so
That is right. Yep. Beautiful.
but I did give her the Malice in Ovenland, the first issue, so she's reading, which is very important. Now I got to work on my nephew, so the whole takeaway from that is it is important for children to read. So comics is that gateway. It's that first step. That's how I learned to read, sadly.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And I just want to tell the audience that this is going to be a big feature in Black Enterprise's October magazine and also on BlackEnterprise.com. We're going to talk about the state of the black comic book business. And you know what? Support black comic book creators. As much as, they create, we have to buy and consume. And this has been really great. Thank you, all of you. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.